How do the Sunni brothers explain the event of Ashura and the persecution against the Prophet's relatives, the grandchildren of the Prophet? And how do they explain and justify it? Let's take a look. It is very interesting to know that a large part of the Maqtalul Hussein, the books that recount the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, are predominantly from Sunni sources. For example, Maqtalul Hussein Khwarazmi is a Sunni scholar, and Tabari is a Sunni historian. Many others who narrate the history of Karbala are also Sunnis. So, dear brothers, for example, go look for references about what is said regarding Imam Hussein. For the most part, Sunni scholars have spoken about the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. So it is no longer something that a Sunni scholar can, we could say, reject. And for example, here, I am already seeing different books. I will read to you, for instance, from the Imam Awasiyasa by Abu Muhammad Abdullah ibn Mustami Qutaybi Dimbari, which is from the year 276 after the Prophet. And it also speaks about the martyrdom of the Imam. Another book is called Ansabul Ashrafi Ahmad ibn Yahya ibn Jabir al-Bari, which is from the year 279 after the Prophet. It discusses the history of how the families of Ahlul Bayt were martyred. In the book Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya by Abu al-Fada Ismail ibn Umar ibn Qasir Damashqi, written 774 years after the Prophet of Islam, it also speaks about the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. There are others, for example, the history of the city of Baghdad, year 463 after the Prophet of Islam, the history of Yaqub Ahmad ibn Abi Yaqub ibn Ja'far ibn Wazik, 284 years after the Prophet of Islam, such as Yor al-Hawazi Septebne, which also speaks of the martyrdom of Imam Musul to Islam, and such as. And there are many more Sunni and Shia sources that discuss how Imam Hussein was martyred in Islam. So the interesting thing, dear brothers, is how they address the topic of the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. Everyone agrees that in Karbala on the day of Ashura, the family of the Prophet was martyred in a very profound way, as Bukhari narrates in several accounts. So, the memory of the hammer of Muzan is something that has been mentioned in all Sunni sources. First of all. Secondly, how they treat this, the vast majority of Sunnis will neglect it, ignore it, not mention it, or say it is not of such importance, that they have slaughtered and dismembered the family of Ahlul Bayt, the Prophet of Islam, what the Messenger of God commands us in the Holy Quran. I do not ask for any reward for what I have done. The Messenger of God, by God's command, says to love completely. With all your heart, love my family. So what do the Sunni people do? A large part of the Sunni brothers neglect it, especially those influenced by Saudi Arabia, the Wahhabis. Some are very wicked, like Ibn Taymiyyah or the Wahhabis, and those from ISIS. Some will justify the actions of Yazid, saying that yes, Yazid ordered the Imam Hussein to be killed. But well, in every government, anyone who rises against the governor deserves to die. Yazid speaks the truth. The Wahhabis and the ISIS terrorists say this. There are books, there are sources from them that state it. They declare that Saint Joseph deserved to be beheaded. And we will do the same when we have the government in Saudi Arabia. A couple of months ago, 50 people were beheaded, including a minor around 11 or 12 years old, a Yemeni boy. They all were beheaded with a sword. Even in their jurisprudence, which is affected by the corruption of the Umayyads and Abbasids, they have titles on how to behead people. So those people whom we label as Zionist terrorists, they who agree with killing Imam Hussein, even ISIS terrorists made a statement saying that they agree with what Amir al-Mu'minin Yazid, the commander of the believers, did. Yazid, if we were to be in the time of Yazid, we would accompany Yazid in killing Hussein. they are enemies of Imam Hussein. Therefore, they are not going to mourn that day. They will take it as a celebration, they will celebrate it and everything. Some of them, who are also wicked but are more intelligent, say they are not as blatant as Ibn Taymiyyah. What is Ibn Taymiyyah going to say, let's say, to exonerate Yazid ibn Muawiyah? How does he do it? Yazid said he did not know, he no longer wanted it. He obeyed, because the governor of Yazid in Kufa killed Imam Hussein on his own. A total lie. It is as they are, we can say, exculpating. Exempting Yazid is a lie, manipulating history. So they come to blame Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, while absolving Yazid. Ibn Zaymin in his works, such as in his famous book, speaks in this way and says that Yazid was not to blame. Menhaju sounded. So, these are the Wahhabis who are enemies of God. But let's see. The vast majority of Sunni scholars throughout history have mourned for the Imam. Today in Pakistan, in Egypt, in India, in Iraq, there are Sunni scholars who respect the Imam and remember that day of the Imam in Al-Isala. That is also true. But it must be taken into account. They already know, if they cry for the Imams in Islam, it is practically converting to Shia Islam. That is why we have a resistance, a kind of resistance against like rejecting the Shia, because the Shia's motto is to cry for the Imam, while we proudly cry for Imam Hussein, for the martyr. That is how we express ourselves. We cry to evoke emotions. So since it is like the motto of the Shia, they have a sort of abstinence from crying like we cry. So some of them, at most, remember the Imam on the day of Ashura or talk a bit about Imam Hussein, but in a very, we can say, emotionless way. Or some I have seen that have a voice of sadness, nothing more. But singing for Imam Hussein and making people cry and all that, there is some resistance in them. Do you know why? Because when you cry for Imam Hussein, then you are going to say, who killed Imam Hussein? Emotionally, that will dominate the love of the Imam in your whole heart. So you will love Imam Ali with all your heart because you love Imam Hussein. When you read the history of Karbala on the day of Ashura, they said to kill the sons of Hussein who bear the name Ali. In Mom, she named her 3 sons Ali. Her eldest son was named Ali. Mam al-Sajat, his name was Ali. The little one who was beheaded was also named Ali. He named all his sons Ali. And because at that time they insulted Imam Ali in Islam. So if you cry for Imam Hussein, remember a lot about Imam Hussein in Islam. Who had allowed Yazid to come to power? Muawiyah. Who had put Muawiyah in charge? That corrupt one. So that's where the problem begins. You will see that Osman had put him in power, and before Osman, it was Omar. The blame must be placed on Omar and Osman. So, if we have said that God sends his curse upon those who prepared the ground to martyr the emotion, did Omar not know that Muawiyah is an enemy of Imam Ali? Yes, he knew it because Muawiyah fought against the Prophet of Islam until he could, up to the conquest of Mecca. They were Tolaka, the freed ones by the Prophet of Islam, who deserved to be enslaved. But the Messenger of God did not enslave them, he freed them. They were Tolaka. So Omar knew? Yes. But why did he give power to a murderer like Muawiyah? That is the question. There are 2 ideas. Shia say, look, Omar did it because he was an enemy of Ahlul Bayt. He gave power to Muawiyah so that Muawiyah could kill him. In other words, Omar did it consciously. He knew what he was doing. But the Sunni brothers say no, it wasn't like that. It was that Muawiyah at that time was a good person. Muawiyah was wicked until the conquest of Mecca, where he suddenly converts to Islam and becomes a perfect and pure person during Omar, remaining perfect and pure until the end. So when he fights against Imam Ali, oh, it's just a struggle for power, that's all. But when he goes to poison Imam Hassan, that's a lie that the Shia brought it. And when one goes to place or hate the Imam by insulting Imam Ali, whom the Messenger of God said, loving Imam Ali is faith, rejecting him is hypocrisy. Oh, that was the political fight. Muawiyah made mistakes. We haven't said he is a saint, but that Muawiyah put Yazid in charge. Oh, look, those powers are normal. Who is going to be king? He will put his son, even though his son is a fool, but well, then we say, but Yazid killed Imam Hussein. No one will bear the blame for another. The Pope only appointed Yazid out of love, but Yazid turned out to be evil and killed Imam Hussein. Perhaps Imam Muhammad Ghazali, one of the Sunni masters, justifies it in that way. It is said that we do not know if Yazid, at the end of his time, repented for what he has done. Therefore, one cannot invoke God's curse upon Yazid. Perhaps Yazid has regretted everything he has done. Maybe he has regretted it. I mean, it's an attempt, It's a contradiction. If they choose to cry for Imam Hussein, it means they have already accepted him with all their heart. Because crying means that I already love Imam Hussein with all my heart. If they have accepted it, it means they are opting for the Islamic revolution, for Imam Hussein, for Qasem Soleimani, for the path of Imam Hussein. It is to reject the Umayyads, to reject the Abbasids. It means that if you say yes, you have to go all the way to the end. So they are there resisting. It's like they don't want to let you in. And when you go to ask that question, they throw you out of the mosque. It is a resistance. In the Sunni school, they know this. They say, look, I have actually sat with many of those scholars and talked deeply. In the end, what do you mean? And look, Imam Ali was not infallible. He had his mistakes. But what does the Messenger of God say? The Messenger of God also had his mistakes. It's just that the Messenger of God also had his mistakes. One of his mistakes was giving too much importance to his family. It's that you don't even accept the Messenger of God. You know that the Messenger of God did not place much importance on the Arabs, but Omar did give it a lot of importance. And the Shia are mostly Persian. It's just that we are not Persian, we are Arabs. That's why we cannot choose the Shia. So, if there is going to be an Arab who is Shia, he is a man of God, because Arabs love to be Sunni. Listen, that is important. Why? Because Omar ibn Khattab, yes, it is true, had established many rules in favor of the Arabs. A total discrimination against the Ayam, everyone knows it. That is why Arabs generally choose to be Sunni and Persians to be Shia, because they were oppressed. And Ahlul Bayt were also oppressed. So the Shia, being oppressed, when they find Ahlul Bayt as their defenders, they defend Ahlul Bayt and will be in love. A group oppressed by the Arabs will become enamored with the Ahlul Bayt. Another group oppressed by the Arabs will be known. There will be a very strong bond between the Persian Iranians and Ahlul Bayt, whom we have always historically loved, but the Arabs have not. Why? Because Ahlul Bayt always spoke of justice. They said it doesn't matter if you are Arab or non-Arab. Arabs and non-Arabs are equal. An Arab or a Latino are the same. This did not hold much importance for him. It was not liked or appreciated by the nationalist, racist Arabs. That is why you will see if you find an Arab who is Shia. It means that this person has been able to control that in his heart. He is a man of God. So Arabs in general are mostly Sunni. But if you find an Arab who is Shia, that is a man of God. He is the sweetest person you can find, because he is someone who has willingly accepted the path of humility of Ahlul Bayt. That is why you will find Sayyidina Nasrullah is a sweet man of God. Because he is Arab and he is Shia. When you meet those people, you love the way of life because they are going to be the closest to Ahlul Bayt. I say that Shia Arabs have more merit than Shia Persians, because we are traditionally Shia, which means always, because the Arabs, like Omar, always oppressed the Iranians. During the conquest of Iran, they committed many massacres. Do you understand? I will give you another example. For instance, if a Latino is against Christopher Columbus, it is something normal because, for example, a person who is originally from Mexico, an original Mexican, if they are against Hernán Cortés, it is something normal because they consider him an invader who killed children, women, and everyone. It is normal. An Iranian is against the Arabs who were invaders. It is normal because he remembers so much invasion, so much evil from them. But if we are going to find a Spaniard of Spanish descent, from Castilla and Leon, from Barcelona, this blonde Spaniard is not all of that. But that is faith against the conquerors, against the invaders, against Christopher Columbus, against Hernán Cortés, against stepping on that person who is special, because they have a free soul. They are a person you can talk to. Do you understand? This is how it is among the Arabs. So Shia Arabs are very prominent people. I personally have a lot of respect for them. That is why I always love Seda and I always remember him in my supplication. Because look at that person with such spiritual greatness. In the end, he says, I am a soldier of a Persian leader. Imagine all of that about Khamenei. And that shows his spiritual greatness. It shows his spiritual purity. And that is not found in everyone. Well, with that, we will conclude. Dear brothers, the truth, in sweet words in the work is bitter. And not everyone who speaks the truth lives by the truth. That is the heaviest part. So many of their interests go against Imam Hussein. And for their interest, they prefer to forget Imam Hussein. For example, those who receive money from Saudi Arabia or from the US, they prefer to ignore Imam Hussein in Islam. That is why you observe that in their mosque, they never talk about Hussein. So we ask God to help us have open hearts to the truth. May we set aside our interests to seek the truth. More Salomon, and may the peace and blessings of God be with all of you.